As we mentioned, Janet, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us as well. Our first guest this morning is Republican candidate for governor Charlie Baker. On his last weekend before Election Day, he's been traveling around the state, making that last pitch to voters. And you are, Charlie, you're in where are you, Woburn?
I'm in Woburn at the Woburn Memorial High School. There's a senior luncheon here.
How's the weather up there? I'll give you a chance to be a weather forecaster. What's it doing up there?
Well, I would describe it as cold, clammy, and snowy. Probably in that order. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. I'll tell you, it's a great day for the Patriots to play Peyton Manning. I'm not quite sure it's a great day to campaign.
There you go.
How do I know that it must be cold up there? I think this is the first time I've seen you wear a coat in this entire campaign, Charlie. For the most part,
this is the first time I've... No, you're right. It's the first time I've worn a coat since the race began.
So before we get into the campaign, we get into some of the issues, I want to ask you about Tom Menino. You're on the opposite side of the aisle politically from him, but with Menino, that really didn't make a great deal of difference in most situations. Give us your best Tom Menino story and what you remember most about him.
Well, the thing I remember the most about Tom Menino is he was not just somebody I dealt with when I worked in government. The city of Boston was also my second largest customer when I was at Harvard Pilgrim. So I used to pay him a visit at least twice a year and just check in on how things were going. But the thing that was really interesting about him, and I like to think of myself as a detail guy, if there was anybody who was having any kind of an issue or problem, and it wasn't just, members or family members of city employees, it could be pharmacies or durable medical equipment providers, sort of anybody in the city of Boston who had any issue with Harvard Pilgrim, it was never too small for him, and he would call me up and he would say, look, we have this problem and you need to fix it. And I would then dutifully go about fixing it. And I always used to think, wow, this guy, there's just anything that involves anybody in the city of Boston that has a problem, he takes it on as his problem and he wants to see it fixed. And I think that in some respects is why he has sort of the persona that he has and why so many people are turning out today despite the weather to thank him. Because for 20 years, he really bled everything. He bled Boston for everybody.
And he loved the political process, Charlie. He would love these final closing hours before the voters actually go to the polls. One of your biggest pitches to voters is fiscal management. How important is the tax and the fee issue as voters do go to the polls in just a couple of days?
Well, I'll tell you, I've heard people say to me all the time, why do you talk about jobs and spending and taxes and schools and balance and bipartisanship? And my answer is because that's what voters want to talk about. And as I've traveled around the Commonwealth, especially when I'm in working class neighborhoods and communities, it's what people talk about. They talk about feeling like they've been nickel and dime to death for the past 5 or 6 years, and they want to see state government tighten its belt and play by the same rules they do. And I plan to give them that.
You have said repeatedly, here we are, closing days, closing hours. You continue to say you will not hike either, right?
It's correct. I think we need to be able to deliver a Commonwealth that's as thrifty as the people of Massachusetts.
Charlie, following this broadcast this afternoon, former Inspector General Greg Sullivan is holding a press conference to once again accuse your opponent, Martha Coakley, of essentially lying about when she learned about possible wrongdoing by Sal DeMacy and his associates, and that took place more than 6 years ago. Do you think this is a key issue for voters deciding about who should be the next governor?
Look, I think all of this, the campaigns are basically an accumulation of little data points for voters, and some information about candidates is going to be important to some voters, and other information will be important to others. What I can tell you is we've spent this entire race talking about our plans to grow the economy and create jobs everywhere in Massachusetts, our plans to create strong schools in every community, and our plans to bring bipartisanship and fiscal discipline to Beacon Hill. And that's really been what we've focused on. And I've been really pleased and gratified by the response we've gotten from voters across the political spectrum as we've made that pitch. I mean, we had rallies yesterday all over Massachusetts. There were Democrats, Independents, and Republicans at those rallies. We had local officials, mostly Democrats and Independents, who endorsed us at those rallies. And I think in some respects, that's because people think we're talking about the right stuff and that we have the ability to follow through and deliver on it.
So, Terry, let's talk about some specifics. You say you have the most complete jobs plan. So give us a rough estimate on how many jobs that you think you can promise voters in your first year in office.
Well, I think what we can do is create a far better climate to create jobs. And and to keep the jobs we have. I mean, one of the major components of our initiatives is to clean up our regulatory process and reduce the time it takes state government to make decisions. I mean, it's not just about creating jobs, it's about keeping jobs we have opportunities to keep. I can't tell you how many businesses, and by the way, how many municipalities, colleges, and universities and hospitals I've talked to over the course of this campaign who said to me, it takes Massachusetts so long to make decisions that we lose opportunities in some respects to grow our business because we can't get the permits and the licensing we need to expand our footprint. I mean, in some ways, that's our biggest issue of all right now.
In the final days of this campaign, your opponent is questioning the sincerity and truth of your tears in our debate just a few days ago when you talked about meeting a New Bedford fisherman. Just set the story straight. What do you know to be true? What do you know to be exaggerated? And what should voters remember as they go in and vote, if it's important?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. The first is the incident is certainly true, and I may have gotten some of the details wrong, but it stuck with me for a long period of time because it was a dad talking about his kids. And as a father, there's nothing that sticks with me quite like somebody talking about their children and feeling like they may have done wrong by them. But I got to tell you, this is a pretty desperate act on the part of the Coakley campaign. I mean, when I'm out there talking to voters, what they want to talk about is what I just talked with you about. What are we going to do to improve our economy? What are we going to do to make sure our schools are great? And what are we going to do to bring some discipline and some focus and urgency to Beacon Hill? That's what voters are talking to me about, and that's why we picked up all these endorsements over the course of the weekend.
Charlie, what are you going to miss most about campaigning? And what are you going to, you know, give me both sides. What are you going to miss most, and what do you appreciate about campaigning?
Well, I love the campaigning and the opportunity. During the debate the other night, I got asked what I would call the title of my book, and if I were to write one, and I said 10,000 conversations. The opportunity you have to have these intimate and familiar conversations with people you don't really know that well, because you share this common desire to make Massachusetts better, is incredibly powerful, and for me anyway, the best part of it all. I mean, we've been from one end of this state to the other and had opportunities to get to know people we would never have had a chance to get to know otherwise, and to learn all kinds of things about this great state and the great people who live here that I wouldn't know just sort of living my life day to day. And I'm never going to forget any of that. I think the hardest part is getting up every day and shaving, which I'm not much of a fan of, to tell you the truth.
This is a yes or no question. Yes or no, if you win, will you join us on OTR next week? The pressure of live TV.
Hey, it's all calendar permitting, folks. If we do win, you'll certainly see me soon enough.
We'll have an OTR.
And hopefully it will be inside.
We'll have a pop quiz ready to go for you. Charlie, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Republican candidate for governor Charlie Baker, the Democrat.